Today my guest is Angie Breidenbach.
Like work became my God, maybe something else has become their God, and that this will be a gentle way for them to say, wait a minute, I need to turn this back to God and let Him lead me through.
Welcome to Heritage of Truth. Today my guest is Angie Breidenbach. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's been exciting to come and be here with you.
Well, you have a book called A Healing Heart. It has a really interesting cover here. I see scissors and quilt squares and family photos, one of a really interesting looking dog. and I know that pets are a feature on your website, but we'll talk about that later on. But I want to hear about this book. Why don't you tell us what the premise of it is?
The whole concept between A Healing Heart and the characters in me is that I'm a workaholic. I've been treated for workaholism, and I wanted to portray a workaholic character. And so Mara Keegan is a workaholic mom who has a heart attack and has to trust her business to the one man who tried to hostilely take it over 5 years before. And I think the theme of trust comes into play here because workaholics like me have a really hard time trusting someone else delegating. We have a hard time letting somebody else help us. And no, we can't accept help because it's not only a matter of we want it done right, but our pride gets in the way. And then our pride kind of takes it to a new level, and we begin to live in our workaholism as a way to escape our reality. And so we become workaholics, just like, and it sounds like an odd comparison, but it's very true. Workaholic is an addiction, just like an alcoholic. So an alcoholic will escape into their alcoholism. A workaholic will escape into their workaholism. And it's very difficult to pop me out of the work mode. I've been known to work 100-hour work weeks without stopping for a long period of time. And I can get into that cycle. And I wanted to show that it's not just me. I'm not unusual. There's Workaholics Anonymous out there. But what happens is when we treat our bodies like this, we get into problems with heart health. And we can have heart attacks. We can get very, very stressed out. We can become short with our families. And the family is the first place we should be loving. And that's often the first place that we show our weaknesses. So she has a heart attack, and that stops her cold in her tracks.
Now, she has children?
She has 3 teenagers, and I've been a youth ministry coordinator. I've been a tour director for taking kids to Mexico and to St. Louis, actually. I brought 48 kids to St. Louis on a bus for 2 weeks. Teens are very, very close to my heart. And so she has 3 teens. I had 6 kids. They're all grown up now. They're 21 to 29. And I'm a Grammy. I have 4 grandkids.
Wow.
But it's important for me to show that moms have to remember the relationship with their children and not always be a workaholic. We have to put a roof over our kids' heads sometimes. I was a single mom for 2 years, and when I married, I had 4 children, and he had 2. And we kind of blended this family together. And people used to call us the Brady Bunch because we had 3 boys and 3 girls then. That's what's kind of taking place in A Healing Heart. She's not really looking for a man. She's looking to make work her God. And that's what I really struggled with. If I could work, I could fix everything. If I could work, I could make everything be okay. But unfortunately, that's not true. And 18-hour work days really doesn't give your kids time. And I had to go through that process and understand the lost relationship in order to regain it.
How does quilting figure in this book?
Now, as a workaholic, she never breaks her promises. She works hard to make sure her promises are kept. All her daughter wanted for graduation was a quilt that was her memory quilt. In our family, our children all get a birth to graduation quilt. That my stepmom started this tradition. And the reason for the photos on the cover are because the photos are on the memory quilt in real life. And I have 6 memory quilts, 1 for each of our children, that have photos of their lives, birth to graduation. Cadence Keegan, her daughter, she just wants a photo memory quilt from her mommy. and her mommy is an artist. She runs a business that makes all of these, creative and helpful things, but she doesn't get to do them anymore because she's so busy being the boss. So she, in her recovery from her heart attack, has to make a quilt for Cadence, and her promise cannot be broken. So she has, through this whole book, she's struggling to finish, to make sure she meets her promises, even against her weaknesses.
Now, Cadence is an interesting name. What made you choose that for a character?
I love the sense of our lives really go to a cadence, but it's not our own. It's the music that God places in our heart. And Cadence was a character who really does go to her own beat. She wants to be the best that she can be, and she wants to become close to her mom, but they have this battle going on, this dissonance. And so I love to sing, and so the dissonance and the harmony, and then I like to see the character arc where mom learns that she's really creating the dissonance with her daughter, and that they can come together, and then daughter learns how she's reacting to her mom, and they can now learn to harmonize and be in relationship together.
Okay, and this takes place in Montana. That's where you're from, is that correct?
I live in Missoula, Montana, and this book takes place in Bozeman, Montana, and it was so much fun. We went, and we go to Bozeman often, but we went and toured all over, and I had my husband driving in the car, and I was snapping pictures with my cell phone, and he'd slow down, and I could snap through the what would be the drive that Mara or Cadence would take through Bozeman to get home or to get to work. What buildings would they see? How far away were the mountains and this kind of thing? Did they ski? Did they go to the Museum of the Rockies? And in the book, I have so much fun. My characters go to the tourist spots. You can really go to these places. They really exist. They're not fictional places. So if you like reading A Healing Heart and you like the setting of Bozeman, go on vacation to Montana, please, and go and visit it. Go to the Museum of the Rockies. Go to Bridger and go skiing. Go snowmobiling, Go to one of my favorite places to eat pizza is Mackenzie River Pizza. The original Mackenzie River Pizza is in Bozeman. So, of course, they eat it in the book.
That's fun. Well, that's one of the things that real fiction fans want a book to be authentic. And if you are familiar with a town and the streets are wrong, or they mentioned something. One time I read a book where something that this character came out of a building and would have seen another building she mentioned later. If she'd come out, she would have seen it right in front of her, but it wasn't mentioned there. It was mentioned later, like, oh, we're near this now, and that ruined the book for me.
Because you knew she would have walked out right into it.
And seen it. I really appreciate that you took the trouble and your husband let you take pictures so that when you wrote the book it could be authentic with the sense of place, especially for those who are familiar with it.
Having been Mrs. Montana International 2009, part of my job I take very seriously is the tourism in Montana and bringing business to Montana, which is another reason why the character was a business owner. Because I believe so strongly that we have the most wonderful state in the country, the most wonderful place in the world, and our logo, our saying in Montana is "Get lost in Montana."
That's cute.
And it's fun.
That's cute. Well, this is a Christian book. You're a believer.
Yes.
So tell me, what were you trying to communicate spiritually through this book?
When I started writing this book, I realized that I really needed to take Mara to a place of anger with God. In my younger years, I loved the Lord, and then I went awry. I went off and away on my own because I was so mad at God. He gave me a mentally ill mom, paranoid schizophrenic mom. He gave me an alcoholic stepdad, and my natural dad lived several states away in Las Vegas, actually. And I was so angry at him. And then I married, and my marriage fell apart, and it was all God's fault. It was all God's fault. He took away all my dreams, and I was so mad at him. And in all reality, God didn't do those things to me. But God allowed me to make the choices that put me through that, and then He led me through that valley to where my ministry now comes from the heart of what I've been through. If I had never been through any of those difficulties, if He just took me right out of them and never let me go through them, I would have nothing to say to anyone. And instead, He said, I'm going to take you through here. Just keep holding on to my hand. I'm going to lead you through here. And you're going to, in the meantime, you're going to choose these things. But because you choose these things, I'm going to make good come from them. Mm-hmm. And so my life verses are actually Romans 26 and 27, which basically, paraphrased, tell me that when I don't know what to pray for, the Spirit will pray for me. He'll come and He'll swirl through my body, through my heart, and my prayers become the aroma that the Holy Spirit takes right up to the nostrils of God, and He breathes in my prayers. And when He does that, He turns His face on me, and His eyes glow, and He says, I got this one, honey. And when He does that for me, then Romans 8:28 makes sense. Mm-hmm. That He'll do all things good for those who love the Lord and are called according to His purpose, right? Mm-hmm. All things are going to come out good. But I couldn't believe Romans 8:28 because I didn't know how to pray. And then I backed up, and I read 26 and 27. And then I understood it isn't 28 isn't the focus. The focus is that I need to let Him come in to me and take my prayers that I don't even know how to say. And so I learned how to groan before the Lord. Mm-hmm. And when I did that, He took me through that path, and He said, give them to me, honey, give them to me. And He kept leading me along. And then He said, now, we're through that. I want you to turn around and look back. Do you see all of that? Here's another woman. Would you sit down to coffee with her and tell her about your experience? Here's another woman. Would you tell her about your experience of being a workaholic? Here's another woman. Would you tell her about your experience of divorce? Here's another woman. She needs to know about having a mentally ill mom. Mm-hmm. And He did it on a one-on-one. And then it started to grow. And He said, when you write, you are writing to the most intimate part of the soul of another person. It's going into their mind. That is their essence of their being. He said, please write a story that tells other women your journey through fiction, so that they can say, I'm really not bad, and I'm really okay being mad at God, because God's going to bring me through it and show me how He loved me through it, and then I can release it all and be okay. And then I can help somebody else. But when you're climbing that cliff and your fingers are bleeding, you didn't fall off the cliff. You can then sit down on the ledge, take a rest, reach your hand down to another sister and bring her up to sit beside you. That's what He showed me through writing this book. And He said, go ahead, tell everybody you're a workaholic, because I wouldn't tell anybody. I was very ashamed of being a workaholic. And He said, if you can't be transparent, you can't help someone else, and I can't work through you. So I started learning to practice transparency. So that's where that came from.
Well, you mentioned at the beginning of this little discussion about, having the mentally ill mom and the alcoholic father. Well, I don't know about the mentally ill mom, but the alcoholic father, a lot of that was based on his sinful choices. And the workaholism based on your choices. And so a lot of times when we blame God, it's really because of our choices or someone else's choices.
And God will come alongside and say, I know you made that choice, but I'm going to make good come out of it.
That's right.
And it is. And often we feel like a victim because of someone else's choices, or because we don't recognize our choice put us there.
Right.
And I love the mentoring spirit of the character Joel in this book. And he helps Mara come to recognize some things about herself that I hope readers will enjoy, maybe examining in themselves too, and find out maybe they're not a workaholic, but maybe they've been too caught up in something that has, like work became my God, maybe something else has become their God, and that this will be a gentle way for them to say, wait a minute, I need to turn this back to God and let Him lead me through.
Right. Well, for some women, it could even be quilting.
Yeah, really. It's a very passionate thing.
It is. Yeah, it is. But it can also be a thing that they can use for blessings.
And I think blessing our children with something like this, that they are that special. That they wrap themselves up in that quilt, that they're wrapped in love, and that their life matters.
Yes.
I think putting their pictures of their life on the quilt, your life matters.
Right.
And this is our dog.
That's your dog.
That was our own dog,
I don't know if you can see this, but this is the dog. Okay.
That's Louie. And he can actually do, in real life, he could do 95% of the tricks. I had to untrain him from the other 5-10%. Because in the book I have him, he could close doors, but he had claws. So he would close the doors and go right down the door. Right. So I had to teach him not to close the door.
Okay, very quickly, because we're almost out of time. Tell us where we can find you online, and who in your family we are going to meet on your website.
Oh, thank you for asking. My name is Angela Breidenbach, and you can find me at angelabreidenbach.com, BREIDENBACH. And our new kitty is Muse. And Muse does Muse reviews, and he also does a really fun thing called Pets Dish on their celebrity authors. So if you want to learn more about authors, and you're going to get it from their pet's point of view, a little tongue-in-cheek. Or a little bit of a twitching tail.
That sounds like fun. Well, thank you so much for being my guest, Angie.
Thank you
I really
so
enjoyed
much,
it.
Jeannie. I appreciate it.